Good morning once again, everybody. We are going to talk about how to drive success, not in the, corporate way, but and how to withstand setbacks, nearly any setback. So, the reality is we all know it, we all feel it on the blue collar individual level. Um, Life is kind of becoming an even more bitter, harsher slog. It's like we're walking through quicksand at this point. All right. We've got an economy that looks like it's legitimately about to fail. Tied with that, you've got the risk of the banking system tipping over. You've got the risk of the housing market tipping over. If you were one of those hardworking millennials, for instance, who actually ended up getting into housing, that if the housing market tips, that could absolutely ruin you, depending on when you bought. All right. We also have another fine war because what a great idea. That's totally what everybody wanted. Another goddamned war over sand. Legitimately, when it comes down to strip the two sides, the two brother religions that hate each other the most, strip them out of it. We're pissing away tons of goddamn money. So one side or the other side can get control of some more fucking sand. I'm not giving you, there are, precious resources, materials, things that can be made to use. Okay. Yeah, fine. But, but, it's a shit show. All right. It's a waste of time. We shouldn't be doing it, but you don't need me to tell you this. No part of this country or any other Western country actually operates in the interests of its own people. They work in the interest of themselves. All right. Whatever lines political pockets more. All right. And we all know who lines those pockets the most. Anyway, Cal controls Hollywood. Anyway, we don't always win. All right, we're going through this slog. We're trying to march through quicksand, and it's up to our waist. It's difficult. All right, a lot of the times we're not winning. If we adopt a trench warfare mindset, all right, just put yourself in the mindset of being some poor bastard who got drafted into World War One. You're stuck in a trench. Artillery shells rain down. Eh, Massive barrages, maybe 2, 3 times a day. Occasionally, there's an absolutely megalithic barrage that kills damn near 3/4 of the people you knew. All right, and somehow you survive. Your ears are ringing, your eyes are bloodshot, and you are absolutely wrecked as a human being at this point. Honestly, most people would just get shell shock and completely implode, especially, following World War One training standards. All right, World War One, you have to remember the root of modern psychiatry came out of conditions like shell shock, and even though we've buried it under euphemisms, it's still the same damn thing, shell shock. All right. George Carlin did a bit talking about that simple, clear, direct language, shell shock. And it's like, yeah, yeah. We linguistically bury all of the shit we really don't want to confront or comprehend. All right. Sometimes it's a defense mechanism. Sometimes it's specifically to drive our attention away from things. But back to the point, you adopt the trench warfare mindset. The more you get pushed back, the more you build your capabilities for the next push. All right. So, yeah, sure, you lost a trench. All right. You double your forces, you get ready to go over the wall again. All right. And you do it again and again and again, slowly collecting small gains. Now, given this requires a decent amount of patience, it requires the ability to long term plan. All right. A lot of people don't plan for the long term. Even short term, I suppose, still counts. Short, medium, long. It doesn't really matter. Every small gain adds up. All right. And it's incredibly important. Every single small gain adds up to a larger gain over time. All right. As long as you're moving in some direction, all right, you're doing better than most people are. Most people are stuck spinning their tires, they're pulling their hair out, and they're losing their fucking minds. All right. Eventually, once you collect enough of those small gains that turn into big ones, all right, you become so powerful at a certain point that you effectively become unstoppable. Your old enemies either rout from exhaustion or get steamrolled. This is essentially, even though a lot of people don't want to give the Russians any credit when it comes to Ukraine, they knew exactly what the hell they were doing. All right, given it started off very fucking poorly, but it essentially turned into a gigantic, essentially World War One tactic. It's you entrench, you bombard, you move forward, entrench, bombard, and slowly the Russians and Ukrainians, and not so much Ukrainians, have been wearing down the Russians, and the Russians have been wearing down the Ukrainians. Tons of bodies, tons of lost economic productivity going into the future. But it's effective because as long as the Russians have more people than the Ukrainians or any of the Ukrainian allies in Europe do, eventually they run out of people to send to the front, and then the Russians could just steamroll in and take Ukraine. Right? It's a simple strategy. It's incredibly destructive to human life, but in terms of trying to preserve it to a certain extent, um, I mean, you don't just want to send endless wave, human wave offenses. All right, just nonstop. And Russia's not really capable of that anymore. All right, the old Soviet days are gone. All right, there's no more cheap, easy, youthful, capable, strong male fighters in the numbers you would need to pull off human wave offenses. Anyway, back to the point. Once again, after multiple setbacks, all right, because just like the Russian strategy, it started off fucking poorly. Gigantic columns of tanks just getting hammered to death. All right, terrible idea. All right, where you end up with the military routing and leaving tons of equipment behind and fuel and ammunition, easy to be picked up by the Ukrainians. Anyway, after you deal with enough of these setbacks, all right, you learn the best ways to adapt to a setback. All of this, any kind of action, is training. Not only do you learn how to adapt better, you learn how to adapt quicker. All right. You get trained up enough. You start thinking with this mindset. All right. Regardless of the circumstances, you're a steamroller. You're either going 1 mile an hour or 40. All right. It is what it is. Once you learn to adapt quickly and make the right calls and the right adaptations, it gets a lot easier to function from this mindset. When you can't outwit or match the strength of your opponent, you absorb it. Okay? This kind of what would be an example? What would be an example for that? Like the Rocky movies, even though they don't necessarily fit, but um Rocky Balboa versus what was Dolph Lundgren's character? Ivan. Yeah. If you can't outmatch the strength, if you can't outsmart whatever or whoever your enemy may be, all you have to do is absorb all of the energy they're throwing your direction. At a certain point, they're going to run out of steam. And as long as you have, because rarely does, a lot of people will build up strength, all right? Strength comes in many forms. There's financial strength, political strength, legal strength, which ties in with political strength. There's physical strength. There's multiple different strengths, but whilst a lot of people do have a handful of strengths, at least one, all right, by the time they get into their mid 30s to 40s, they're at least strong in one area in a lot of cases. That doesn't necessarily mean they are trained to endure. All right. They're not conditioned well. All right. You can have a dude who's absolutely jacked. All right. In terms of like physical muscle, he could be absolutely jacked, but that doesn't mean he actually did any real conditioning exercise. All right. He's not built necessarily for endurance. He's not built for staying in the fight. All right. Guys who aren't naturally bigger and unnaturally, I suppose, but guys who are physically strong, in a lot of cases, your muscles from the waist up are essentially short burst. All right. They're designed to put out a lot of energy in a short burst, and that's it. All right. When it comes to waist down, those muscles, and I suppose the abs technically, but those muscles are designed to endure. All right. They're keeping you up against gravity. Regardless, even though your opponent may be strong, whatever, or whoever that opponent may be, as long as you can endure, absorb, endure, and keep your conditioning on point, you could just take the hits. Yeah, they suck. Minor setback here, minor setback there. It is what it is. But you keep absorbing those hits, eventually they run out of energy. All right? They run out of energy. They want to throw in the towel on the fight. All right? No matter what the fight is, they start running out of steam to keep going forward. And you can take absolute advantage of that. All right? As soon as they run out of energy, you just move in, easy as a feather, push, they fall over. All right. Most, if you go back to Sun Tzu, no army has ever succeeded through infinitely protracted warfare. No city has ever succeeded. City state. It was a mess, early China. Anyway, if you are specifically designed to endure, if you can absorb every single hit and keep marching forward, little by little, by little, by little, by little, your enemy is exhausted. You steamroll. It's a done deal. All right. All you have to do is stay in the fight. All right. This is especially important now. All you got to do is stay in the fight. It's gonna suck. All right. The quicksand is not drying. All right. The stretch of it is getting longer by the day. But as long as you stay in the fight, eventually you're going to get to the end of that. Every journey starts, every, 10,000 step journey starts with a single step. I mean, it's fruity, but it's true. All right, you got to start somewhere. What else do I have to hit? I do have bullet points in front of me. Okay, yeah, no, that was it. Perfect. Going into the future. All right, present and into the future. Do everything you can to stay in the fight. All right. We are going to watch, honestly, with the way things are looking. I'm not going to lie to you. It looks like DJT is going to be as close to the American version of, oh shit, what the hell was his name? Gorbachev. It looks like DJT is going to end up being the American version of Gorbachev. All right, where he just essentially oversees the decline. Or maybe, you can, it wasn't Yeltsin, Brezhnev? It's possible. All right. Regardless, try not to stress too much about shit. Adjust your mindset, adjust your perception, and build yourself around the idea of, because life is not about getting to the finish line first. All right. There are tons of people who have tried to speed run the shit and they got to do everything now, 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 now. There's no patience at all in these people. All right. This comes back to one of the first fucking stories that will never not be taught in early education. All right. Tortoise and the hare. It doesn't matter if you get incredibly close to the finish line if you run out of steam. All right. Life is an endurance run. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. All right. If you adjust your mindset to be able to keep slogging through every single loss, every single hit, every single setback, all right, start to adapt to it over time, get better at adapting to it, you're going to crush it. All right. You are. You're going to crush it. There's a whole fuckload of people out there who are effectively brain dead. Outside of the hedonism, there's a lot of people who haven't done shit. They haven't done shit with their lives. All right. They sit there, they stare at their phones all day. Of course, I mean, we're all guilty of that shit. But they sit there, they stare at their phones all day. They're not learning anything new. They go to their jobs and they just work their job and that's it. They don't try to do anything else. They don't try to, honestly, I can't blame people for not trying to, own a home at this point. But they're not trying to do anything particularly useful or productive. They're not trying to develop themselves. All right. Now, given you do also have to give to them the fact that, well, what the hell's the point of developing yourself? All right. Be that with degrees or anything else, what the hell's the point if AI is going to take all the jobs? Again, don't go to college because you want a degree and expect that degree to actually get you a high paying job. Apologies. Go to college if you so choose. If you really want to burn all that money when you could just get the textbook on Amazon. All right. I mean, shit. You got the internet. The information's out there, dude. If you're going to go to college, if you're going to learn something in a more traditional setting, it should be things that you're honestly interested in, not just whatever you picked out of the hat that seems like it may make you a lot of money. All right. Going into presently and into the future. Oh, how the hell do I break this to people? Also, my apologies. I've been up for like 32 hours. All right. It has been an absolutely exhausting day for me. Um, and I cannot wait to get to sleep. Anyway, you're not going to be rewarded by the system, all right, for learning anything at this point. All right. There is no reward. There is no point in going to college for a degree for a shiny paper. That shit's over. It's done with. You learn shit that you want to learn because you want to learn it. All right, because it may help you in your own personal journey. All right. There's a better way to word that, a better way to put that, but it escapes me currently. But regardless, I'll end it here. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me ramble on about shit and my utter exhaustion. And if you appreciate the video, like, favorite, sub, share, do all the things, leave a comment, hype it if that pops up. Um, mm, if you're interested in written content, check out in the description box below the Substack. And if you are interested in personal or business advice, www.spadesconsulting.com without the dash. And I will see you all next time. You have a good one.